My name is Ayasha. 17 winters have etched themselves upon my bones, but my story bleeds from the day I first glimpsed my reflection and trembled. I was 6, a child still painting the world in sunflower yellows, yet my body had betrayed me, stretching into curves that mocked the innocence caged in my chest. Standing beside Ami, strangers whispered I wore her silhouette like a stolen skin. Women dissected me with dagger glances, while men's eyes prowled, hungry wolves tracing prey. My aunt's voice once cracked the air like a whip. See how she parades her sins already? God knows what filth she'll become. Terror became my shadow. Childhood had crumbled, though my doll still waited, wide eyed, for games we'd never finish. My brother, the boy who once shielded me from street dogs, now wore silence like a mask. He'd linger too close, breath hot with unspoken venom, until one afternoon his hands became a language I couldn't unlearn. I screamed, but the sound withered in my throat, a butterfly crushed mid flight. That day they buried my girlhood in an unmarked grave. No prayers were whispered, no tears fell.
My uncle's gaze clung to me like a curse. His eyes coiled around my body, not as though I were a living girl, but an object carved from silence. Once, when the house lay empty, he cornered me and hissed a sentence that still festers in my ears, a sentence that tore my soul from its roots. I ran to Annie, trembling, but her slap branded my cheek like a penance for his sin. Girls who stay within their limits don't invite such things, she spat, her voice sharper than the sting on my skin. Then there was Raja, Mama's son, who once traded marbles and laughter with me. Now, his eyes stripped me bare, their playfulness replaced by a hunger that clawed at my skin. I hid from his stares, but how long can a shadow flee its own darkness? One day, I stared at the sky and screamed silently, am I just flesh and bone? Does the girl inside me, the one who wants to cry, to live, exist at all? Or am I just a ghost trapped in a cage of skin? When I turned 9, they enrolled me in school. A farce of respectability. My uniform became a shroud meant to hide what the world had already decided to exploit. But the boys' leers, the teachers' complicit silences, and the daily whispers gnawed at me like termites. One afternoon, the school caretaker cornered me, his eyes crawling as he growled, "You've grown up fast, better be careful now." I was 11, yet I began to hate my own skin, as if my body were a crime I'd authored. Miss Shazia, my homeroom teacher, mistook my silence for rebellion. "Girls must learn to smile," she'd chide, her voice syrup-sweet with judgment. How could I explain that laughter had been stolen from me long ago? Inside me raged a tempest, a howling, wordless chaos no one else could hear. Even walking to school became a gauntlet. Men would materialize like ghosts, blocking my path, some grinning like jackals, others feigning shyness, their silence screaming louder than words. I'd learned their language by then, the dialect of hunger. College was supposed to be my escape. For a fleeting moment, I dared to hope, new books, new faces, girls who wore laughter like armor. I thought I could outrun the chains coiled around my ankles since girlhood. But freedom was a mirage. Professor Rizwan's gaze clung to me like a shadow. He'd detain me after lectures under the guise of concern, his questions dripping with innuendo, his fingers, accidentally, grazing mine. His eyes dragged me back to the school caretaker's leer, the uncle's venomous whisper. I realized then, for women, education is a borrowed hour. Dreams, dignity, it all crumbles the moment your body becomes a spectacle. At home, the walls tightened. My brother now campaigned for my marriage. "A woman's worth lies in how quickly she's wedded off," my father declared, his words ricocheting off the walls to pierce my heart. My dreams, of becoming a doctor, of etching my name into the world through grit, lay trampled. All that remained was the mantra clawing at my ribs: your destiny isn't what you choose, it's what others carve into your bones. I was only 16 when they married me to a cousin's son. Amy stitched my wedding clothes with trembling hands, Abu drowned his guilt in silence, and my brothers celebrated their liberation with cigarettes and laughter. At the Nikah, I whispered, Jubal High, with a stone lodged in my throat, as though hurling myself into a pit of shadows. My husband, Jamil, was 8 years my senior. His eyes held no warmth, only the cold calculation of ownership. On our first night, he gripped my face like a relic. Love was a foreign word. What he took from me was not intimacy, but conquest. The early days were a war zone. My consent? A joke. My desires? Delusions. He weaponized my silence, fed on my tears, and etched his dominance into my skin. You belong to me, he'd growl, critiquing my clothes, my voice, even the way I chewed. If I dared speak, his palm became my punctuation. Bruises bloomed on my body like grotesque flowers, but when I begged Amy for help, she hissed, a woman's survival lies in swallowing fire. Months later, I carried his child, a life he resented. This baby is mine, he'd sneer, but you'll never be worthy of it. His hands became storms, shoves, strikes, acts too vile for language. One night, fleeing his rage, I stumbled down the stairs. The fall ripped my child from me, and with it, the last flicker of my soul. Jamil dumped me at my father's doorstep like shattered china, cracked, useless. The divorce papers arrived, but no one asked if I still breathed. My aunt clucked, girls who fail to please their husbands end up discarded. I ceased to exist that day, no longer a daughter, a bride, or a mother. Just a ghost haunting her own corpse, a stain no prayer could cleanse. After days of lying motionless in my childhood room, I awoke to a revelation: I was not merely alive, I was alive, and survival demanded rebirth. Allah writes our stories, I whispered, vowing to surrender my shattered heart to His will. But how does one unstitch pain woven so deeply into the flesh? My body still bore the hieroglyphics of violence, my mind, a museum of ghosts. One morning, while walking by the river, I met a man. Ordinary in appearance, like me, yet his eyes held a quiet understanding, as though he'd deciphered the language of my scars. His name was Hassan, an officer who'd weathered his own storms. We spoke little, our silences threading a kinship no words could name. He never probed my past, only said, your joy, your dignity, these are sacred to me. His voice, soft yet unyielding, filled the hollows inside me like light spilling into a forgotten room. Then, one day, he asked, Aisha, will you let me walk beside you in this life? Not a demand, but an offering. We married quietly, without fanfare. Hassan became my sanctuary, a man who cherished my laughter more than my obedience, who saw my wounds not as flaws but as proof of survival. With him, I relearned tenderness. Mornings tasted of chai and shared silence, nights, of whispered dreams. The past still lingered, but its shadow grew faint. Today, I say this: pain is a season, not a lifetime. I learned that storms carve rivers, and rivers carve paths to new shores. Hold fast to your izzat, your selfhood. Trust that after the darkest night, dawn comes, not because time heals, but because we choose to rise, again and again, cradling faith like an unextinguished flame.